Namaste, and welcome to our continuing series, Explorations in Savitri, with our beloved Oliver. We continue Book 3, the Book of the Divine Mother, Canto 3, the House of the Spirit and the New Creation, page 331, a few lines from the bottom.
So Ashapati is experiencing this while his soul has released itself from the bonds of nature and gone all the way up into the supramental consciousness, where he is experiencing all this new world, which is going to be the ideal world, the supramental world, house of the spirit, but his nature is lying far below. This is the whole interesting experience where we stopped. I'll just read those lines again. Two beings he was, one wide and free above, one struggling, bound, intense, its portion here. So even if one has very high experiences in ascension, still something of the outer nature, it doesn't get transformed automatically. It's a long, long process. This question often people ask. They expect that if somebody had a very high experience inwardly, it means that everything is transformed. Even Sri Aurobindo was asked about experiences. This is, of course, a realization of a very high order. And he says that experiences do not transform nature. Even realizations do not transform nature. They enrich the consciousness. And they lay a stamp. They can prepare the nature. But transformation is still something which is beyond.
And didn't Mother say about transformation, if she had only 50 people?
Yes.
Never got them.
A tie between them still could bridge two worlds. Because nature moves within this small circle and he has gone far beyond. So there is no link, no bridge. There was a dim response, a distant breath. All had not ceased in the unbounded hush. His heart lays somewhere, conscious and alone, far down below him like a lamp in night. This is what is so beautiful about Sri Aurobindo, that all through Savitri, all through, in fact, all his writings, you will see that even when he is in the highest, he will connect it to something here upon earth. Always, yes, invariably. Always. And that is what he writes in one of his letters, that my yoga always followed this course. Right from the time I landed in India, I continued to have this worldly and otherworldly experiences as if they were fusing into each other. It was never like a withdrawal and having some great experience inside, but coming back, nature remaining untransformed. And that is why so much importance in this yoga for work. Because in meditation one may have very high experiences, but without work the actual transformation process, it does not start. Abandoned it lay, alone, imperishable, immobile with excess of passionate will. His living, sacrificed and offered heart, absorbed in adoration mystical, turned to its far-off fount of light and love. So this, when he's speaking of the heart, it may well be the psychic, that portion of the psychic being which is caught up here. Because he describes that it is there in a state of sacrifice, adoration, offered. So this is the state that we should be when we are approaching the sanctum sanctorum of the divine. I was reading one of these small passages of the Mother. She says, I have a letter, somebody asking for their son to get admission into this college, somebody something else. All of them throw their desires. And then she says, human beings treat the divine as if should be just doing what they want him to do. And that's how they treat the divine. Says they think there is a power much greater than their own power. And that power can do for them what I want in my ego self to be done. This is how people treat the divine. But here the state is of complete offering, surrender, adoration, mystical. In the luminous stillness of its mute appeal, it looked up to the heights it could not see. So now he is taking us from there right into his heart, which is lying on earth. So it is absorbed in an adoration mystical. While his soul has gone, met, and is ready to, is still there because there will be a dialogue. But here it is lying in that state, looking up to the beyond and cannot see. It yearned from the longing depths it could not leave. In the center of his vast and fateful trance, halfway between his free and fallen selves, interceding twixt God's day and the mortal's night, accepting worship as its single law, accepting bliss as the sole cause of things, refusing the austere joy which none can share, refusing the calm that lives for calm alone. To her it turned, for whom it willed to be. This is the way to create the inner Matri Mandir. Refusing the calm that lives for calm alone. Refusing the nirvana, refusing that peace which is wonderful for yourself but leaves the earth unchanged. Refusing that bliss and just staying here because this is life and this must change.
Shall I read?
Yes, please read. Even these earlier few lines, if you can read, so because they are so wonderful. In the luminous stillness of its mute appeal. 5-6 lines from above.
In the luminous stillness of its mute appeal, it looked up to the heights it could not see. It yearned from the longing depths it could not leave. In the center of his vast and fateful trance, halfway between his free and fallen selves, interceding twixt God's day and the mortal's night, accepting worship as its single law, accepting bliss as the sole cause of things, refusing the austere joy which none can share, refusing the calm that lives for calm alone. To her it turned, for whom it willed to be.
So there are two parts of the psychic being. One is which is tied to earth and deliberately tied to earth. It has come for this purpose. And the other part which is the central being which knows the purpose, which knows the whole plan. And if you touch it, you know your work, your mission and everything. And then this other part which is tied completely. Rather two parts of the Jivatma. And Sri Aurobindo says this is the psychic and that is the central being. And what is the purpose of the psychics? He says it's like a wire that connects the lamp to the generator. Generator is the divine and the lamp is the body. So without the psychic, actually this yoga cannot be done because there is no way you can really connect with that source. So in this yoga, the first thing is to bring out the psychic. And for the psychic, what is the way? It is worship as the single law. Yearning, worship, surrender, sacrifice, mystical adoration of the divine. That is the path. Love.
In the passion of its solitary dream, it lay like a closed, soundless oratory, where sleeps a consecrated argent floor, lit by a single and untrembling ray, and an invisible presence kneels in prayer. We should wait there. You can talk a bit about that.
So we can see that first he describes the inner state that we should have when we are in the Matri Mandir, and then we can see it is the outer manifestation. So see it line by line and
Yes, yes.
compare it with the actual experience. In the passion of its solitary dream, it lay like a closed, soundless oratory. You see, goes further, where sleeps a consecrated argent floor. The marble floor, spot white, lit by a single and untrembling ray, and an invisible presence kneels in prayer. Now, this argent floor, of course, when we go to the symbol, is the spiritual consciousness. So, the spiritual consciousness is now surrendered to something still greater. So, a ray comes from the supramental light and begins to enter into it. That is how all silver is always the symbol of the spiritual, and gold is the symbol of the supramental. Just as moon is the symbol of spiritual consciousness, and sun is the symbol of the supramental consciousness. So that there is a difference between the spiritual and the supramental. This is may sound very natural to many of us because having dealt with in Sri Aurobindo's writing, but people still confuse. And there are letters. Dilip Kumar Roy asked Sri Aurobindo that X says it is the same thing, spiritual and supramental. And Sri Aurobindo says if spiritual and supramental were the same thing, I would not be wasting my time all this while. So spiritual is still within the realm of the mind, but beyond the mind, beyond the human mind. So it is wonderful. It has its own beauty and glory, and like higher mind, intuitive mind, over mind, dazzling gods. And the dazzle of the over mind can be so much confused to be the ultimate reality. Sri Aurobindo writes a letter that I myself initially, when I got contact with the over mind, I took it for the supermind. He writes that.
Yes.
He is asked that why in the synthesis of yoga you have not used the word over mind. So he says that when he got in touch, he took it for the ultimate reality. So there was no over mind. It was mind going through layers and then the ultimate reality. But then he says what I was experiencing was actually the influence of the supermind in the overmind.
Yes.
So if you read through the synthesis, this word is not there. So it is only later on that he saw the distinction between the two. And then the whole change starts.
In the Life Divine, he speaks of the divine soul.
Yes. In the Life Divine he speaks. Also
Yes.
because he revised subsequently.
Yes.
Even synthesis was revised, but Life Divine was revised right up to 1940s.
Yes.
Synthesis of Yoga was revised up to a point, I think 30s or something, if I am not mistaken, and it didn't go further. So many of the terms, very interesting that the word psychic being, it occurs much later. And it is the mother's suggestion of this word, psychic being. Sri Aurobindo had, he had the whole experience of all these things. But it is she who gave this word, psychic being. Because in India we use the word soul. But soul is a very general word. And of course it is often misunderstood as ghost and this and that and everything. Everything is soul. So then he explains that soul, the inmost soul, that portion of the divine, one which struggles here, that is the psychic.
Yes.
And one which is always free and above, that is the central being. So otherwise we just use the word Jivatma. And Jivatma is like, the way it is described is that when it is turned toward the earth, it is in ignorance. When it turns and sees its master, it is freed. Actually, that is how it is described.
Now, some of these lines may have had you recall the Matrimandir chamber. Many people have had this experience. The closed, soundless oratory, the consecrated argent floor, lit by a single and untrembling ray. Now, I've read dozens of times what Mother has said about this ray and how it should be there day and night.
Yes.
And Piero was the engineer who designed this solar
Okay, light.
system so that one ray of light could fall on the crystal at all times. Oh, it's incredible. Oh, when you read what Mother has said about it, she says, I have seen it. And she explains to Roger and Paolo exactly what she has seen. And they said, no, we don't need pillars in the room. And she said, pillars are there. I've seen them. People can rest against them, she says.
Yes.
Oh,
She says that.
she's so clear on what she has seen. And as much as we can understand, it has been achieved.
Yes. See, human people often speak about, whatever deficiency. Well, human instruments, always some deficiencies are there. But people have striven and tried to do their best. That's how I look at it.
Yes.
All human creation, unless it's a supramentalized human beings, there will be some little imperfection.
And disagreements.
Disagreement. That is
Inevitable.
It's just not possible to have a perfect perfection without a perfect perfection in the consciousness. So one should be little generous in understanding these things. But the fact is that leave aside, how I answer. Doesn't matter if Matri Mandir has been made with exactly precise millimeter dimension or not. The fact is, when you enter there, you experience the power of silence.
She put her force.
Silence can be so powerful. I mean, it's amazing.
Yes.
Same thing I say about Savitri. People go into, this comma. It's okay. I understand that, yes, it should be, if possible, not a single comma here and there. And it's quite likely that this way or that way, some things are there, give and take, for whatever reasons, mischief or whatever. But the fact is, when you dwell in Savitri, it uplifts your consciousness. It doesn't really matter. And even when we read, even when it is there, we hardly read with that kind of a precise, intonation. And maybe it is meaningful because, when we focus too much on the technical details, we probably lose the inner lamp, which is burning brighter because of the contact with the consciousness of Savitri. So Savitri is a means of ascension and contact with the mother's consciousness. And that's how I look at it. And so it's wonderful. So instead of getting lost into,
It was originally written in 2 books. And the first book, Sri Aurobindo proofread the entire book.
yes.
That you can say every word
Yeah.
is sacred. Every word.
Book 1.
Yes.
Completely, that's true.
Or the first 5 cantos.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
Yeah, in book 1, first 5 cantos.
Yes.
In book 2, he revised extensively.
He did revise it and he looked it over, but he did not proofread it.
Yeah, he did not proofread it. But it enlarged far beyond its original scope.
Yes.
Just a small book and then developed into so many cantos. But the fact is that, I don't know, every time we come in contact with Savitri, it is so uplifting, so wonderful. I mean, it has its transforming power. So while it's perfectly valid this side that, things should be as perfect as they can be, it is equally important to note that we can still, get into contact with the divine presence which is engraved within Savitri and which is inbuilt within Matri Mandir. That's how one has to look at it.
On some deep breast of liberating peace, all else was satisfied with quietude. This only knew there was a truth beyond.
So this all else is, entire nature has gone into an self-gathered sleep filled with that peace and stillness. But there is something deep within which is seeking for something beyond the peace of nirvana, beyond the peace and the silence. Marvelous lines now which follow. Consenting to the slow, deliberate power which tolerates the world's error and its grief. Consenting to the cosmic long delay, timelessly waiting through the patient years, her coming, they had asked for earth and men. Mother was asked, her coming, who had asked? They had asked. Who are they? From time immemorial, there are countless beings who have gone, who have offered this aspiration. We don't know their names. And yet they've been asking for that power to come down and redeem earth. But the state of consciousness is important. State of consciousness for all of us, consenting to the slow, deliberate power, which tolerates the world's error and its grief. So if we are not patient, if we want everything from today should be just as I want it to be, all goody things, pleasant things in my life, then I am not ready for the yoga, basically. One has to understand that it is going to take time. And Sri Aurobindo never hid it from anyone. He never promised that in, few months you will experience an exalted state. I remember long time back, I had come here and maybe just couple of years, and there was a gentleman who was, people thought that he is a, advanced sadhak, the most mischievous term. Why? Because always he was in white, always outwardly very disciplined, what he will eat, what he will not eat. After 5 years, he decided to go away from here. So they wanted me to talk to him, to convince him. I said, this is a meaningless exercise. Let him go. It is nobody's loss. But sometimes people feel that, if such a great sadhak goes away, it's a big loss. It is nobody's loss. People have asked to Sri Aurobindo also, oh, A has gone away from here. So Sri Aurobindo says, it is nobody's loss except his own. So I spoke to him. He said, no, 5 years I've been there and what do I see? I see only, what are people doing? This person is friend to this person, this is happening, that is happening. I said, why are you watching all this? Have you come here to keep an account like Chitragupta of all the, people around? And people thought he's a serious sadhak. But when I spoke to him, I was wondering that even the fundamentals and basics of spiritual life is missing. So then I asked him that, still what makes you leave and go? He says, I want transformation. And here 5 years, nothing. So I said, where are you going? He said, Mount Abu, I'll get transformation there. I said, very nice. I can understand because everybody wears white dress there. And I said, you will be at home. Because that's what you want. Segregation, all white dress. I said, yes, a nunnery is the right place where you should be. He went, now he has gone 15 years back. Where is the transformed being?
But he didn't get the irony.
He didn't get the irony. So the people who had asked me, I said, see, it is good for him. He is too impatient. And impatience and yoga doesn't go together. Even life, impatience and life doesn't go together. And people who do this flip-flop and, do this doctor shopping or guru shopping end up finding nothing. Very unfortunate. Mother has used the word.
Yes.
She says going to different doctors is as harmful as doing guru shopping. Or maybe this guru will give me. Arey, guru, it's your sincerity which will give you. Guru is of course needed. But much more important is inwardly, what is your inner state? Is there aspiration? Is there truly that surrender? Is there sincerity? Is there faith? Is there equanimity? Are you growing in these things? Sri Aurobindo has said that very clearly, that these are the elements of the yoga. Otherwise it's not. So people hop from one guru to another. And she says in the end you find nothing. Also because they are in contrary pulls.
Yes.
There is a guru who talks about, nothingness and all this. So I'm very clear on this. People ask me, aren't they good things? I said, yes, these good things are everywhere. You don't need a spiritual person to tell you these fundamental things of life. As a rational human being, you can arrive at these same conclusions.
Yes.
You don't need, a guru to tell you these things. But at the same time, you must understand that through all this, the goal is towards nothingness. So, You can't be pulled in two contrary directions. It is going to. So that's why Sri Aurobindo says, and even Swami Vivekananda very beautifully puts it. First read, then think, then reflect. Then when you are ready, you think this is it, then walk on that path, don't look back. Take time, no hurry. And I have known at least a few spiritual masters, not connected with me inwardly, but met in the course of whatever journey of life. So I have seen that all great masters say this. They are not in a hurry to evangelically catch you. And if somebody is in a hurry to evangelically catch you, be very careful. It is just a net.
Yes.
Most of them will say, take your time. Even Sri Ramakrishna Mission. I know of a boy means man, and he wanted to join the mission. They told him, no, you take your time. You read, take your time. So reading, meditating, you go here, there, doing some elementary practices. These are all preparations of yoga. They are not yoga itself. Yoga is when you decide this is it and that's the end of the story. That's my journey. Whatever happens, that is what makes a person walk on the path. So I have seen this several places. So Sri Ramakrishna Mission also, they don't take you, accept you as a sannyasi just because you are a big name or something. They will always tell you that you come, see how you feel, come back after a year, 2 years, 5 years. This person, he turned towards Mother and Sri Aurobindo. So it was a wonderful destiny.
Yes.
So
As Alok speaks on patience, I'll share with you, I'm probably older than most of you here. I'm just taking my first step.
all of us, that's what we should be always in that state. Every step is a first step.
Absolutely.
I would put it like
Absolutely.
that. Why? Because all that is behind. How many steps have you taken? Why do you want to count? I would slightly, put it more. Every step is a first step. It makes the wonder and infinity always in front. So you see, consenting to the slow, deliberate power which tolerates the world's error and its grief. What is that power? There is another thing about Mother. She herself writes in words of long ago. She says, the Divine Mother never judges. She accepts us just as we are. Consenting to the error and grief. Doesn't she know? If we are already perfect, what are we doing here? At one place, in fact, she says, it's based on an aphorism of Sri Aurobindo about error, which basically implies that there is actually no error. And Mother ends up saying that actually, if you go to the highest state, there is no error. These are all steps on the way.
Savitri.
Yeah, that Savitri and even mothers in agendas, they're all part of the journey. So some people think sometime that, oh, I have wasted so much time. Perhaps that was how it had to happen. Of course, one should not want to waste time. There is a difference between the two. And the second is to look back and feel bad. There is a whole conversation of her where she says, all of us, if we look back, we will always have something to say that I wish I could have done this way, I wish I could have done that way.
Yes.
But when we enter into that vastness, we understand it had to be the way it had to be. And that's why another place he says, to man's impatience, God seems to be slow. And to God, man seems to be slow. But in the highest wisdom, everything is just as it should be. Of course, it's the highest wisdom. But we should understand, keep that always in the back of mind. Also, he says that, we should not be... Vyakulta is not good in this yoga. Aspire, but with steadiness that you want it here and now, but at the same time, you are willing to wait for 1,000 years if necessary.
Yes.
That is the state of the ideal sadhak. Consenting to the cosmic long delay, timelessly waiting through the patient years, as patient as time. Her coming they had asked for earth and men. This was the fiery point that called her now. So you see, what is this yoga? To get in touch with the psychic being, just call her. Ma, her coming patiently. How long she will take to come? That is her will. When she will come, obviously our nature, when it is ready, she will prepare it, she will do everything and to wait. This was the fiery point. And that's what I keep telling people. It's amazing. One has to go to Odisha to see this. People say that Shiva Bindu is difficult. Even recently in Vrindavan, somebody, asked me. I said, you people say that it is so difficult. I am telling you, in Odisha, I have seen people uneducated, illiterate. And there's so much, many of them, in such a beautiful inner state. Whether you call it psychic or not is a different thing. It may be, such a surrendered state, such a state of joy, delight, peace. When they are doing mother service, it's just unbelievable. You go to a Odisha center at 2 o'clock at night and they know you are a devotee, that's all. That's enough. The way they will be waiting, look after you, just wonder where is all this love coming from except the Divine Mother. And it's not one place, not one person. It's filled all over. Why? Because this is what they have caught it. Call them. They were given these two things by Babaji. One, for collectivity, he said, Pat Chakra. Have study circles. It doesn't matter you have centers, not centers, study circle. And second, for individual, Nam Jap. Nam Jap, call the mother, Pat Chakra. And I have seen the marvel of that several times. It's amazing. So calling her, see, just call her is such a. But call her from the depth of the being. This was the fiery point that called her now. Extinction could not quench that lonely fire. Why? Because mind, life, and body are asleep still. But this is awake. Its seeing filled the blank of mind and will. Thought dead, its changeless force abode and grew. Armed with the intuition of a bliss, to which some moved tranquility was the key. It persevered through life's huge emptiness amid the blank denials of the world. Persevered, see another patience, perseverance. Through everything may deny, everything may contradict the divine. But this knows, armed with the intuition of a bliss. So it is happy in the labor, not like getting frustrated, despair, oh, nothing is happening. It always carries that joy which comes from the psychic. So it's very beautiful. These two aspects of the divine grace, Mother speaks of it, peace and Ananda. So if you read through the history of spiritual literature, lot has been spoken about peace, stillness, nirvana, emptiness. Ananda, you see, basically in the path of bhakti or love and Shri Krishna's, you hear about the delight. Otherwise, delight, love, they are shunned by sincere seekers. Sincere seeker, Mother says that. But they are so afraid. But without Ananda, there is no creativity. Ananda is the creative force of the divine. But it should be on the basis of peace. Move tranquility was the key. If the being is in peace, then it contacts Ananda, otherwise everything will be topsy-turvy. It listened, amid the blank denials of the world. It sent its voiceless prayer to the unknown. How beautiful it is. So this is what the difference between aspiration and prayer. Aspiration need not be in words. Voiceless prayer. Even animals pray. Plants pray. So we can do that. It's not that we have to remember a set of words and pray. It is like something which is reaching out in a gesture of giving itself. It listened for the footsteps of its hopes, returning through the void immensities. This reminds me of a story. Amid the blank denials of the world, its voiceless prayer, waiting patiently, persevering, footsteps of hopes. So the story I am reminded of is the story of Shabri. It is there in Ramayana. Most of us are familiar with it. For 35 years, this lady waited for Lord Rama to come. And the sages and seers told her of that time, "Arey, they are kings. Why should they come to your cottage? Instead, you spend your time in meditation. We'll teach you, give you a path." But she waited. Every day she would clean the place. Every day she would take out fruits, keep them ready. What if Rama comes now? Footsteps of the hopes. He is her hope. And she is waiting. Or Ahilya is waiting for Rama to come and redeem her. And then when he comes, then she is so filled with delight, she doesn't know what to do, what not to do. She forgets all formalities. A very touching episode in the Ramayana, very evocative, and through the story gives us the ideal psychic state. 35 years, can we imagine somebody doing the same thing every day? And every day at the end she says, "Oh, has he come? No, he has not come. One more day, one more night, the darkness of night has come." But not one day she gives up. So this is the ideal state. This whole passage is the state in which we should be when we approach the divine. It listened for the footsteps of its hopes, returning through the void immensities. So it waited for the fiat of the word that comes through the still self from the Supreme. So it waits for that ultimate word, that sanction, the power that would bless all earthly efforts, waits for its sanction. Yes. Beautiful this is. End of Canto 3. People have waited for lives. Mother has said that. How human beings have waited. Even sages and seers wait for lives. Just to have a glimpse of me. Even Shobinda was asked, by what punya of ours we have come in contact with you. One of them, he said, bhakti in previous lives, bearing its fruits now. Probably those lives were just given to remember the divine.
And the well-known story about the two sadhaks.
Yes.
And the divine says to the first one, "It will take you 5 years to realize and come to me." He says, 5 years. He says to the other one, "It will take you 1,000 years to come to me." And that fellow says, "Only 1,000 years, Lord."
You will come.
Immediately he goes.
You will come, and that assurance is good enough, and he manifests.
Yes.
So this is the difference between by personal effort, tapasya, too much of ego into it. And sometimes this personal effort itself becomes a veil. She writes that in the prayer. And surrender, you wait. You do what you have to do. That's our job. We should do our job. But revelation is the divine job. Transformation of nature is the divine job. You can prepare the nature, open it, become receptive. All this is our part. But the change comes from the grace. So it's so wonderful. They too serve who wait. We'll stop here, I think. Meet next Sunday because it's a new canto we'll start.
Yes.